Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Man, that's a lie. A horrible lie. Words hurt. Words matter. Words that were said to you on the playground growing up, even into your adulthood, they can still have a lot of pain inside of you. Careless words that your parents maybe said, even in childhood or adulthood, it can't be unheard. Inside of arguments, we have these big blowout fights and we say things, we go, I didn't mean that, but you can't unhear those things. This week, we're going to be talking on sticks and stones, on godly communication. And we need to learn more on this aspect because we, as broken sinners, we fight in our relationships in ways that our hearts don't want to. God shares these words for us in Philippians chapter 2. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility consider others better than yourselves. Part of the reason why we have these big arguments and fights in our relationships among people that we love is because of why we're in that relationship. So often we think we're in a relationship to see what we can get out of that relationship. And then when you're not getting what you think you need, you're gonna fight to get that back. God says here, value others above yourselves. In your relationship, don't look at the other person of them doing less, because then you're going to do less. And if you do less, they'll do less. And down you go, and these huge fights happen. Jesus valued you above himself. He set the course, the example for you in showing love to others as he gave and gave and gave so that you could be full. In your relationship, don't look at the other person and what they're giving. Focus on what you can give. And if you both give, you will both get. Today in our Sticks and Stones devotional talk on communication, I want to talk to you about something that is unwholesome, and it's sarcasm. The problem with sarcasm is it can just destroy instantly the joy inside of a relationship, but sarcasm's fun. It's funny. My wife and I have often said that if someone read a transcript of the things that we said back and forth to each other, they might think that we actually don't get along that well. But we know that when one of us is sick, tired, overwhelmed, stressed out, we don't touch sarcasm because the other person isn't going to receive it well. God says that sarcasm, I hate you, or I hate this, those are unwholesome talk. And God tells us specifically in Ephesians chapter 4, do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. Unwholesome. The Greek word there is sapros. Sapros was also used to describe dead, rotting fish. God says that loveless words like sarcasm or saying, I hate this or I hate you, those are like dead, rotting fish to a relationship. Sapros was also used for clothes that were worn out and need to be thrown away. And God goes, throw that away. Throw away sarcasm in your fighting because it's only going to destroy. Instead, God says, do what can benefit those who listen. So rather than saying, oh, I'm so sorry, go to Jesus and say, Jesus, I am so sorry for how I've talked to those that I love. And then talk to your loved ones in wholesome talk, in loving talk, and show them how much you truly care. Throw away the unwholesome talk and show love. I can't count the number of times people have sat in my office and said, I know my mom loves me, but I don't feel it. Or a spouse is in my office saying, my husband, I know that he loves me, but it's just not getting to my heart. So often when that happens, if that's happening for you, it's as if they're speaking a different language. There's a great book out there by Dr. Gary Chapman called 5 Love Languages. And although this book isn't religious in and of itself, it talks about how God built us to receive love and give love, communicate love differently. In my own family, myself and my 3 siblings, we all love differently. I'm a words of affirmation person, which means that compliments show love to me, and that gives me encouragement. My one sister's a gifts love language person, so she gives incredible amounts of gifts. My other sister is an acts of service person, and she will do and do and do. My brother, he's a little harder to nail down, but I think he is a quality time person and just loves to hang out and be around. And the fifth one then is physical touch. Now again, that doesn't have to be something sexual, but just you're the handhold person. You're the hug type person. If you're in a relationship and someone is a love language different than yours, then they're gonna show love to you how they love to be loved, and you're not gonna feel as loved. So what do? First of all, go to Jesus, because Christ is fluent in all 5 of those love languages. If you're a words of affirmation person, you're drawn to Jesus expressing his deep, yearning love for you in the scripture. If you're a physical touch person, you're drawn then to the communion aspect of being united with Christ, with his own true body and blood, along with the bread and wine. If you are a gifts person, then you're drawn to Jesus' incredible gifts that he gives to you. If you're a quality time person, then you're drawn to Jesus' words to you that never will I leave you and never will I forsake you. And finally, if you're an acts of service person, Jesus is the ultimate at this, as he has shown his love in service to you so that you are freed, you are forgiven, you are held firmly by his love. And then after you get filled by Jesus, go to your loved one and talk to them. Ask them what their love language is. Again, I'm a words of affirmation person, so I pour love into my wife in words of affirmation. I love to be loved that way. I love her that way. So I tell her constantly how beautiful she is, how great this dinner is, how much I appreciate her. But my wife is an acts of service person. And so for years, she's like, talk is cheap, buddy. Do something, help out around the house. Once we figured how we both loved to be loved, our love grew. I pray the same happens and is the same blessing for you. So love in any language, but not your language. Love how your loved one loves to be loved. You always do this. You never listen. Right there in those 2 phrases, you heard 2 things that destroy positive communication and just fuel fights. One is an absolute. You always. You never. If you communicate that way, what ends up happening is the other person starts fighting about how often they have done it or have not done the thing that they did wrong, as opposed to just focusing on the fact that they did it. And now if they start saying, wait a second, I haven't done it that often, you get sarcastic like I talked about yesterday. Oh, so you want to meddle because you don't do it that often. Watch the absolutes. It just destroys so often our positive communication. And then watch the you statements. You always and you never. Because when someone comes up to you accusing you, you get on the defensive right away. But this is so often how we fight. And it's not godly communication. God tells us in the book of Romans, chapter 14, let us therefore make every effort to do what leads to peace and a mutual edification. Every effort. That means you're responsible not only for what you say, but for how you say it. And when you use absolutes and when you use accusatory language of you did this, you're going to destroy that openness of that talk that you so want. You're not going to lead to mutual edification and blessing between the two. Now, you can use absolutes in a positive way. Jesus does that. He says, I will never leave you. I will never forsake you. And you can say to your loved one, I will never leave you. I will never hurt you. I want us to work. And then start talking. The best way that you can approach someone when there's hurt is me statements, I statements. I'm hurting. I need you. I don't understand why this happened. Can you explain this to me? And when you open up a conversation that way, your loved one is more often going to be willing to listen. I hope that makes a difference for you as you approach your conversations, you approach the difficult relationships that we sometimes have, but approach them in love, making every effort to have peace. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth. That ought to tell you something. I like that phrase. It's teaching us the best way to communicate is to listen well. God says this in Proverbs 18. He says, he who answers before listening, that is his folly and his shame. And the reason why God gives us this encouragement is how we argue. So often we argue by supporting argument, supporting argument, supporting argument. This is why I'm mad. But if you answer before listening, you never get to the real reason why the person's upset, and you can major on a minor, on a supporting argument of why the person's mad. So let's say there's a man and a woman, and she's upset that he hasn't taken out the trash. So she says, you didn't fix the towel rack, supporting argument. You leave your towel on the floor, supporting argument. You let the grass grow over the summer till it's way too long, and then you finally mow it, supporting argument. And he answers before she's done talking and says, why are you bringing up the grass? It's winter now, leave that alone. And she says, you never do what you're supposed to do. And they start fighting about the grass. They have a big blowout argument. He says things he shouldn't, she says she shouldn't, and they blow up and run away from each other. Eventually they reconcile, kiss and make up. She thinks the argument's about the trash. He thinks the argument's about the grass. So 2 weeks later, the trash isn't out again. She yells at him, we talked about this. And he goes, no, we didn't. And they fight about whether or not they fought about this before. Does this sound familiar? It's because we answer before the other person's done talking. God says, leave your past in the past. When you're talking to someone, don't do supporting argument, supporting argument, supporting argument. Instead, just go right to the cause, right to the problem that's there. And if someone comes to you and they're bringing up the past, listen. Because you love them, listen. And then ask them why. Why are you bringing this up? What are you really upset about? And then you can major on what the actual error, the actual mistake is, and you will avoid so many fights. Forgive others. Leave it in the past, just as Jesus forgives you and leaves everything in the past. Don't bring that up. Focus on what's most important, and you'll avoid big blowout fights and arguments. I pray that gives you encouragement in your godly communication. Thank you for joining me this week. Have a wonderful weekend.